We are so glad you are here today. We have about 250 folks here for this conversation on the intersection of housing, transit, and land use in Greenville County. In this room, I'm sure you've had a chance to network, we have realtors, we have developers and home builders, we have social service agency leaders, business leaders, neighborhood leaders. We have a number of elected officials who we really appreciate taking the time to be here because all of us realize our community is growing and we need to figure out some new ways to help it continue to be successful. I'm Katy Smith. I'm with the Piedmont Health Foundation. We care very much about this topic too, and that's why we're so delighted to help lead the team of partners who convene this gathering today. Many of you were at a similar gathering back in October. It was the Missing Middle Housing Forum. If you participated in that session, raise your hand. I think there's a lot of folks. Okay, great. That session, if you weren't there, looked at what was called missing middle housing. It's kind of that we have a continuum of housing from single family houses to multifamily complexes, but there's a whole array between that of duplexes, courtyard apartments, stacked apartments that can fit well in a lot of places in our community, that can help deal with growth and can also provide affordable housing. And I was not able to attend, but by all accounts, it was a really fantastic and thought-provoking event. So today is a continuation of that conversation. I want to thank our sponsors who helped make today possible, the Hollingsworth Funds that provided significant funding along with the Graham Foundation and my board with Piedmont Health Foundation, who I appreciate, along with our partners who helped put this event together, and they are listed up here on this slide as well as in your program. Can you all join me in giving everybody a round of applause? I also did mention that we have a number of elected officials in this room who we sincerely appreciate. We know how their time is in hot demand, and we're grateful for them for taking the time. If you're an elected official, would you mind just kind of raising your hand so everyone can see who you are and that you're here caring about this today? City Council, County Council. We appreciate you being on the team here with us because this is something we all need to wrestle with together. So I want to start by setting the context for this because, as I mentioned, we have a diverse room, and some folks in this room know a lot about housing. You're building it all the time. You're financing it all the time. Some of you know a lot about transit. You ride it regularly. You are the transit provider in our community. Others have a lot of thoughts about land use. You're with Upstate Forever, our conservation group. Probably a lot of you wonder and worry and hope about a lot of these things, but might not exactly know how they intersect. So I just want to start by very quickly setting context so we're all kind of on the same page as we begin this conversation together. So first of all, this is kind of we all know this, especially if you struggle driving in here this morning, but Greenville County is growing. Last year, census says we hit about 514,000 people. That's a 60% growth since 1995, which is when I moved here, and I have definitely seen it, as I'm sure all of you have. It's driven by our quality of life. We all know it's a fantastic place to live, not just in our municipalities, but in our county and in this whole region. That brings new people here. Excuse me. Jobs also drive our growth. It's a great place to work. We have wonderful manufacturing facilities, a fabulous automotive industry, healthcare, technology, and all of the many small businesses that drive our economy. Those things are bringing people to our community. And as I've heard Tammy Hoy Hawkins say many times, houses are where jobs go to sleep. So all of these new folks that are coming need a place to live. And we have a robust housing market. This is the trend since 1990 with gray bars showing where recessions happened. But in the last period since the beginning of 2018, 8,000 permits for building were issued in this community. Last 12-month period, this MLS had over 14,000 units sold. So housing's in high demand. But that high demand for housing definitely creates a challenge for affordable housing. So just to make sure everybody knows the definition of affordable housing, there is no one number because it varies by person. What's affordable for me might be not affordable or way more than affordable for somebody else. So housing is affordable when it is equal to or less than 30% of your gross monthly income, either for rent or for your mortgage. So when you look at our county, and this is data from the county's housing study conducted by CZB a couple years ago, in our community, that means about half of households cannot afford to own a home, whether that's the home that they desire to purchase or the home that they are already in. And it means about 1 in 4 cannot afford to rent quality, safe housing in our community. So we definitely have an affordable housing issue. There are a lot of different things that drive that. I won't go into detail. They've been covered both in the city's housing study and in the county's, but two things I'll highlight. One is that we have these high demands for housing and wonderful quality of life that create more gentrification in the community. I don't know if you saw in the New York Times just on Saturday, there was an amazing piece of research that looked at census tracts throughout the United States and home sales in those areas. And if you punch in Greenville County's zip code, you'll see there are 3 tracts in which the racial composition changed over the last 18-year period. So those orange areas are the west side of the city of Greenville and Pleasant Valley, where it became more white than it had been previously. And just to highlight an example of that, one particular census district that I pulled kind of around the Unity Park area, the white population in 2012 is now 18%. But of loans to buyers, 83% of those were to white households. The mean income of all households in that census tract is $27,000, but for whites in that census tract, it's $216,000. So things are changing in the community, and that definitely creates a push for unaffordable housing. Another thing that came out in the housing studies were that we do just have low wages in our county that make it hard to afford housing. Out in the county, we do have a lot of really high quality housing that is a good price for folks. But if you are not making a living wage, there's just no way the market can help you in finding that house. So that's another real challenge that we have in our community. There are others, and you can find them in the housing studies that are available online. Transportation plays completely into this because housing is more affordable when your transportation is affordable. That formula related to your income and housing does not take into account your transportation costs. So you can imagine that if you go far out from your job to find housing, but you have to pay an Uber to get you to your job because you don't have a car, or your car is needing a lot of maintenance, or your gas costs are high, that doesn't make your housing affordable anymore. All of us are having struggles with transportation if you live any distance from your job. The average Greenville County commute, you can see, was 22 minutes, but there are hundreds of thousands of people that move in and out of this county each day to go to work, which is phenomenal, the in and out from the counties around us to have jobs. That means our roads are very full. In just the city of Greenville, our daytime population almost doubles every day as folks come into the city to work. So that's a lot of pressure to move people around a limited amount of space in a limited amount of time. That's going to continue to be an issue. Upstate Forever and 10 at the Top a couple years ago conducted the Shaping Our Future study, and they looked at projected land use trends if we continue our current growth trend. What they saw that is in the upstate, if current growth trends continue as is, our development footprint will more than double. So just on this slide, the dark areas on the left show our current developed land, and on the right, the red shows what is projected if current trends continue. In just Greenville County, you can see that most of our land, except for in the northern part, would be developed. I'm not going to issue an opinion on that, but that is just to say, if you are driving within this space and trying to move, it's going to be more challenging if things continue as this. So speaking of moving around the county, our current transit system, this is the map of it as it's proposed to change very shortly as a result of some revenue neutral changes Greenlink has made to better serve its customers. In the northwest, it reaches the gate of Furman. In the northeast, it reaches Main Street and Taylor's. In the southeast, it goes to Staunton Bridge Road, and then in the southwest, and the southeast goes down to Simpsonville. The system has 11 routes. Most of them are in the county, and the hours are limited. Greenlink would tell you, its staff that are working so hard would say, this is not okay, this is inadequate, we want to do better. That's why I suspect that probably most everyone in this room came in a car to get here today and not on transit. There's different reasons, but there is a main reason that I think everyone in our community has come to recognize, that it takes money to operate a transit system. It takes money to run any public infrastructure and make it adequate. This chart might be difficult to read. It's a couple years old, but the basic message has not changed. Greenville's operating budget for transit is at best half of another community in the southeast. Some are double, triple what we have. And our local contribution from the really just from the city of Greenville in our community and Greenville County is just 13% of our budget, which is a fraction of what other communities see. This is a challenge for us. Let me just make sure everyone's on the same page. With this year's revenues for transit is about $600,000 from both the city of Greenville and the county. Then the city of Greenville has also contributed almost $2.5 million to help purchase new buses. You might have seen the fantastic announcement recently of some new Proterra buses that are going to be coming into service, as well as the maintenance facility that Greenlink has coming online. It also contributes tremendous in-kind services. It offers HR services, fiscal management, legal counsel. That's worth about $500,000. So you can see what our local revenues are for transit. Greenlink does have great plans for expansion, and I know Christoph is going to address some of those in his presentation. They want to be there for second and third shift workers. They want to be there for folks who want to worship, shop on Sunday. They want to offer expanded routes to commute to other areas, but none of these are going to be possible without money, but they want to do better. We might think, well, what about roads? Why don't we just expand roads to help accommodate the growth? There's a couple of issues with that I'm sure both of our speakers will talk about, but there's just a plain old space issue. And then speaking of funding, we recently passed a half-penny gas tax after a long battle. Those funds don't cover transit at all, and they really address the current problems that we all know very well exist with potholes, with needed expansions and repairs for right now. So we still have a big hill to climb, and how do we move all these folks that are here now and will be coming here? Let me put this growth in perspective, and this might be difficult to see, so I'll call it out to you. Our combined statistical area today is just under 1.5 million people in Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson. There are a number of communities that were where we are now some period of time ago. The Austin MSA was 1.25 million and is over 2 million today, a 73% growth over the last 18 years. The Raleigh area, I think about a 60% growth. It was 1.3 million 18 years ago. The Las Vegas area, over 50% growth. Nashville, just under 50% growth. Charlotte, which is still bigger than we are, but you all know has grown incredibly. When you look and think, Greenville's just a small town, this is the place I've always lived, I moved here because of the quaintness of it. We want all those fabulous characteristics to continue, but if you think if the next 18 years hold for us what it held for these communities, what does that mean for us and what kind of choices do we want to make? So that is what we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited you all are here to be a part of this conversation.